Hey, I'm Tim Nichols at MrMaple.com. We greatly appreciate you watching today's video. Today we're answering another one of those commonly asked questions: what do I do about aphids on my Japanese maples? You know, with Japanese maples, when they burst out in the early spring, sometimes aphids will go running to Japanese maples, as they're often one of the very first plants to leaf out in an area. Right here, we're in late March here at MrMaple.com, and all of our trees are just bursting buds, and I know that's the way it's going to be for many of y'all in your gardens in the next few weeks. So we're hoping that this question here, answering this question, will help you understand what to do when you find aphids on your Japanese maples here in your garden. Aphids on Japanese maples is often a problem that we see with Japanese maples as they're leafing out. They're often not a big problem, but aphids are little bugs that go in and they take energy and sap away from the plant as it's beginning to leaf out. Long term, if you have a lot of aphids all across your tree, it can reduce your overall spring push of growth. And with Japanese maples only getting 2 pushes of growth during a season, that can shrink your Japanese maple and make it struggle a little bit more in the early spring as it's going on, especially if there's a larger population of aphids. If there's just a few aphids, it's normally even not an issue. It's not an issue that you even really have to deal with often. But what we're going to talk to you today about what not to do and what to do with aphids. Now, what you don't want to do with aphids is overreact. Often people overreact with aphids and they go out and buy some of the strongest chemicals they can find and they start treating their Japanese maples. Well, there's a couple issues with that. Japanese maples, when they leaf out in the early spring, have very tender foliage. And this tender foliage can often be damaged by some of those chemicals that you're putting on it. So just because a chemical is listed that it can be used on maples doesn't necessarily mean Japanese maples, and that doesn't necessarily mean Japanese maples when they're just leafing out in the early spring. And so if you're going out there and you're buying some really strong chemicals and putting it on your Japanese maples as they're just leafing out, you may actually make the situation worse by burning the plants. While you may kill the aphids, you might also burn the foliage on the Japanese maple and really make it struggle. So the best thing to do that we recommend isn't using neem oil. Neem oil can actually burn the foliage as well, but using a thing called insecticidal soap. Insecticidal soap is something that's really easy to apply. It can be applied, one, you can often buy it in a container that is in a spray bottle, or two, can be bought in a container that you can pour into a hose-in sprayer to spray larger trees out in your landscape and garden. And so that's just 2 ways to apply the insecticidal soap. You always want to follow the directions on the container itself of insecticidal soap. You know, this doesn't have to be real complicated though. You can actually use soap as long as you're not using antibacterial soap. Mix it with water and spray it on your aphids. Aphids are actually really easily to be killed. You can use almost a lot of things. Even water will actually drown aphids themselves on the stems if there's enough of it. And using that soap along with it, as long as it's not antibacterial soap, mixed in with water and a hose-in sprayer, can often take care of your aphid problem. The main thing you want to do with spraying with the trees for aphids is making sure that you cover not only above the top foliage, but the foliage underneath. Aphids often hide underneath the foliage in the early spring, and if it's been raining, they're all underneath the foliage, and they're underneath those leaves, sucking the sap out of the Japanese maples. And so when you spray them underneath, you can actually go in and kill the aphids by spraying underneath the foliage. So make sure that you not only spray on top of the foliage with a Japanese maple, but if you've got a smaller Japanese maple on the ground, you get down and you spray underneath the foliage to cover the entire tree with that insecticidal soap or your soap and water mix, to make sure that that plant is completely covered and you'll kill those aphids so they won't be sucking the sap on your Japanese maples. So during lunch, I went and picked up some insecticidal soap. We actually don't have any aphids in our nursery right now. I went around and looked when we were shooting our video, hoping I could find some just for this demonstration. But I went and picked up some insecticidal soap to sort of show you a little bit about what you can do at home for taking care of aphids. Here I've got some, it says insecticidal super soap ready to use, and then you can actually spray it directly onto the foliage. This insecticidal soap is something that doesn't actually hurt the leaves. And so this is a great thing to put on your Japanese maples to help kill aphids when there are aphids visible. Again, if there are no aphids visible, the insecticidal soap's not doing anything. You're just wasting your money if you're spraying it out. This is for treating when there are aphids on your trees themselves. And it's really simple and easy. With this, it comes in a spray bottle. Sometimes you put it in a hose-in sprayer and spray for larger plants. But this is a fantastic tool for the homeowner when it comes to aphids in your garden in the early spring. And this works on a lot of things: fruits, vegetables, not just Japanese maples, but this is Japanese maple safe when they're just leafing out, and is a great way to take care of those aphid problems that you're seeing on your plants in the early springtime. And it's really simple and easy. All you do to apply is make sure you spray it and then get down low and spray underneath the foliage as well, because when you do that, that's where the aphids are hiding. That's where you're going to hit the main portion of your aphids. Take care of those and your aphid problem will likely be gone. Sometimes there can be some aphid eggs that hatch out later, so it may need to apply 2 times to really take care of the full aphid problem if you have a really large aphid problem. But this is what you do for aphids in the early spring, is using insecticidal soap. I hope this really helps you with any of your aphid problems on Japanese maples and understanding what you should do with aphids when you see them on your Japanese maples. Hope this gives you some more confidence in gardening, and we greatly appreciate you all watching this video. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com. The best way to support this YouTube channel and support this great gardening advice you're getting is by shopping on MrMaple.com. The second way is by sharing this video with your gardening friends. Take care, God bless, and have a great day.